We're doing chapter 14, socio-emotional development in early adulthood. This would be around chapter 14. I don't want to tell a date on here in case I need to use these ever again in the future. I apologize for my disheveled appearance today. I have poison ivy down my face. You can't see it. I started taking medicine down my neck. So I'm not wearing any makeup. Sorry. All right. It's from working in the yard on that pretty weekend we just had. So we're in chapter 14, socio-emotional development, early adulthood. Remember, early adulthood is 12, or that'd be bad, 20 to 40. So your 20s and your 30s. We're going to start with Erikson, of course. We keep him the whole time. Yes, I'm in my casual clothes, but my knees are too big. We still have Erikson. And that versus something, the fork in the road where we can go one direction or the other at each stage, depending on what's happening. So this stage is your age, and majority of you, so you can imagine what you're interested in the emotional relationship world. Tick tock, tick tock. It's going to be relationships. Absolutely. My hair's just, I've been working in the yard for days. Anyway, so it's relationships, whether it's romantic or friendships. That's the kind of stuff that we focus on at this age. My notes are above me, that's why I'm looking. And hooking up, getting married, having kids, all that kind of stuff is this age. I mean, if you ask when are you going to get married, when do you think you'll have kids, it's in the 20s and 30s. It's not in the 40s and 50s. So this is what's happening at this stage. But it's not easy. It takes some adjustment because you've been with your family. First, you were dependent with your family. Now you've become more independent and trying to break off from your family. Some veiny hands. And then you want to move out on your own, but then you hook up with someone else. So it's like, it's just a transitionary phase. So people at this age in their 20s and 30s, Erikson believed they struggle with connection versus independence. How much are we a couple and how much am I an individual? Commitment and freedom. That's the kind of thing that they have to struggle to balance early on in those young relationships. If you're married, does that mean there's no girls' night out? Can the guys not hang together? How often can this happen? How often do you do things together versus with your friends? So that's the kind of struggle that happens. How much time do you spend with me? We're married now. You need to be with me. That kind of stuff. So it's a challenge for that stage of life. It's also, Erikson also believed you have to have identity before you can have intimacy. Intimacy versus isolation. I feel like I didn't say that. That's the stage we're at. Intimacy is relationships, and they're not talking about sexual relationships with the word intimacy. You should know by now that in psychology we use the word intimate to mean emotional closeness, not always physical closeness. So we mean it here to be sharing personal information, self-disclosure, sharing your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses. That's intimacy that we're talking about. So Erikson believes that that's the main focus of this age, finding somebody that really understands them, that they can be themselves with. But he says you have to know who you are and be stable in that before you can really have that kind of relationship with someone. So you have to establish identity before intimacy. So that's it for Erikson, but we take his ideas and we go past those for the rest of the chapter. And attachment is a subject that comes back up again. We talked about with little babies. Remember 6-month-olds? Way back in the beginning of the semester? 6-month-olds need to develop that I love you, you love me Barney song by around 6 months. I love you and you love me back. So obviously it can't be a teddy bear. We've talked about that. That was even a test question, I believe. So this attachment stuff comes back up in early adulthood. It comes back and seems to have an impact on our adult relationships. And this is relatively new information. We never thought to track adult relationships and compare them to the kind of attachment they had as babies. But now that we do, we find some interesting results. Securely attached babies, they lead to more realistic understanding of their adult relationships. They know what part their past is playing into their behavior and the effects of their current relationships, and they understand that they can still control that. So they have a good combination of insight, understanding that not past life as reincarnation, but childhood can affect how they respond to things today, which can impact a relationship. But it's not set in stone. They also understand they can fix it. They can make changes. So this is what we see with kids who were securely attached to their parents when they were babies in adulthood. Now, the other kinds, remember there was insecure attachment. We had withdrawal, insecure avoidant, insecure disorganized, that kind of stuff. Well, we're not going into those details. We're just saying it seems to be if kids were insecurely attached in infancy, that they tend to go one way or the other in their adult relationships. They either turn into dismissive types, and so that's someone in adulthood who doesn't want to talk about their childhood, doesn't think it has any impact on them whatsoever today, cannot see how they're carrying over any behaviors or attitudes or learning experiences from their childhood life to their adult life and how that would affect them and their relationships. It doesn't impact me now. So they're lacking insight, and oftentimes they don't want to talk about childhood stuff. They're not invested in that memory. The impression of that is bad usually. Of course, if they've had insecure attachment, it's usually not the best situation. So they're kind of just like, everything was bad and I don't want to talk about it. It doesn't affect me today. That's going to be a hard person to be in a relationship with, because they're lacking that understanding of their own behavior. So that's going to be a problem. The other way they can go if they were insecurely attached as babies is possibly preoccupied. So it's the other extreme. Dismissive, I don't want to talk about it, doesn't impact me today, nothing to do with it. Preoccupied that's the sole cause of all my behaviors today. You accuse me of doing something that's problematic in our relationship, I'll say I can't help it. That's what happened when I was a kid. You focus on it a lot. You don't feel like you can control it. So they'll be very aware of how their childhood relationship with their mother, because that's who attachment's been assessed with, has an effect on their behavior today, but they don't think they can change it. So that leads to some problems, because it will always seem like an excuse, an explanation. In a relationship, that's going to get exhausting too. So those don't tend to turn out well. They can still be hung up on being angry with their parents, trying to please their parents all the time. So this might be a mama's boy that you've heard about, or daddy's girl, where they put their parents above their spouse. That's not going to go so well. No. So these are just some examples of how we think that it can go awry. Friends, we're going to jump into friends real quick, and then we'll get out and stay in love relationships from then on. But friends are important in the early adulthood. They spend a lot of time with friends. Remember, peers are very important in adolescence, so it just continues. Now, once there becomes a romantic commitment and attachment made, often friends drop off. But until then, friends are very important in this age. And we look at differences between guys who are friends and girls who are friends, different friendships. Girlfriendships, girlfriends, ladies, you can attest to this. We talk way more than the dudes do when they get together. Think about going to a party and all the girls have grouped together and all the guys have grouped together, or you met up with a couple couples. You know, the girls go in one room, what do? We talk. What do the guys do? Play a game together, work on the car together, shoot hoops together. So girls get together, we talk. That's what we do. We are closer to our female friends than guys are to theirs. We're more intimate. Again, remember, that just means sharing personal information. We talk about our problems, our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities. And actually, if you think about girls, that's kind of how we bond. My hair is a mess today. Oh no, dear. Your hair always looks good. Mine's the one that's always a mess. You know what I'm saying? We're always trying to put ourselves down that's how we bond. And we give emotional support. We like to help each other out. Guy friendships are different. When guys get together, they want to do something. Like I said, work on the car, play video games, shoot hoops. They do something. And they're more competitive than girls are. Less likely to talk about their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They're not going to share that kind of stuff usually. They want solutions to problems instead of just being able to say how they're feeling, complain about things. Now, it's interesting because if a guy gives another guy a piece of advice, they've measured this before. They literally pull away from each other. There's more distance between them when they're going to share advice or helpful information. It's just interesting. All right. Okay, that's it for friendships. That's not giving it very good justice, but we got to move on. Marriage. The average age we marry is getting older. Girls are 27 and guys are 29. In a couple older editions of our books, it was younger than that. So it's been changing even just in the past couple years. You could hypothesize it takes us longer to get out of the house, longer to become independent, longer to get done with schooling, whatever. But we are waiting longer to get married. We still like to be married though. And it's a good thing because there's a lot of good stats that go with being married. In general, you will live longer if you're married. Now, if it's an unhappy marriage, it's bad. It actually shortens your life by I think about 4 years, they say. But in general, you live longer and you're healthier if you're married. And we like to be married. Most of us in the United States are married at any one time. Whenever they do the assessment, I think like 60-some% of us are married. So we like to be married, whether it's multiple times, but we like to be married. Average length of the first marriage is only 9 years. You can see all these things in the notes. 9 years. Everybody's talking about a 7-year itch. 5 to 10 years is the most common time. 9 being the average. Just like we said, puberty is anywhere from 9 to 15, with 12 being the average. Same thing for first marriage. 5 to 10 years with 9 being the average. Benefits of marriage. Why do we live longer? Why are we healthier if we're married? It's because of the lifestyle differences that happen. For guys, I'd love to ask you what happens. Why they live longer when they get married. But I can't. You're at home. You can't answer. We think it's because they have healthier lifestyles because of us. They eat better. They go to the doctor. And that's because we encourage it. They're not living that bachelor life, eating that junk on the side. We're helping them become more health conscious and do more healthy behaviors. Why do women live longer and be healthier if they're married? Tick tock, tick tock. Income. Their income goes up. It gives them better, healthier lifestyle, access to better food, a better just environment, better healthcare, insurance. So it's that old traditional thing that the woman cooks and the man brings home the money. We still think that helps. It's interesting too that for men, there's no difference, that looks are way more important to a man than to a woman. So he's way more concerned and interested in his wife looking good than she is in him. Now, let me say something I think it's interesting. We see that in cultures where the women earn the same amount of money or close to it or even more than the men, looks become more important to her. It's kind of like if we're all on even financial footing, then the girls can be just as picky as the guys can be. I think that's neat. But otherwise, guys are more interested in looks. I don't know what's wrong with my voice. I think girls are. Now, we do have some new information about homosexual relationships. That's going to be pretty new. Hopefully we'll get more and more about that later as years go on and it's more acceptable and we can do some more research. But it's been so private, so cliche, so, what's the word? Discriminated against, that we haven't done a lot of research on this, on homosexual relationships in the past. So it's kind of new. So what we know right now, the little bit of highlight I'm going to give you, and just, of course, just highlight, there's probably more out there, is that they tend to be more equal. That's what egalitarian means. They're more equal in their approach to responsibilities, power, control. So they share things more. They see themselves as equals, and they're more likely to rely on each other because they're often shunned by family and society, even still. So they have to rely on each other. They're the only ones who are non-judgmental to themselves. They're going to have family and friends that aren't too, but you know what I'm saying. It's a harsh world out there still for people in a homosexual relationship, and it's not free and easy yet. And so they face a lot of discrimination, a lot of prejudice, a lot of responses from others that make them have to seek each other out even more for solace. So, alrighty. Living together is another possible way that people express relationships in early adulthood, and the stats in general are mixed on that. A lot of people say, well, if you live together before you get married, then you know if it'll work because it's a test run. And then if they get married afterward, their success rate should be higher, right? They already tried it out. They already know they're compatible. Everything should be fine. But the research says, nope. If you live together before you get married, divorce rates are actually higher for that couple. Sorry. There is an exception, and that is if you're engaged before you live together and then get married. Divorce rates are the same for if you never lived together. They don't really know. They're guessing that maybe it's whatever the reason you didn't get engaged in the first place is the reason you break up in the end. It's like, why didn't you go ahead and get engaged, or why didn't you get married before you moved in? But that's just a guess, because we don't know why people are less likely to divorce if they're engaged first before they move in. And of course, it's easier to get out of living together than is marriage. Marriage is hard to get out of. It's a legal issue. In North Carolina, you have to wait 13 months from the time you file separation before the divorce can be final. It's 12 months, but then it's 30-day wait period after that, so it's 13 months. Some states, not so much, but it can be very expensive. I know my home state, West Virginia, my mom said that you can get divorced the next day, doesn't matter, but you have to pay $3,000. So it's going to pay one way or the other. It's harder to get out of marriage than it is out of living together. So that might be some of the reasons why people do it. Divorce, since we brought it up, of course, it's been declining, which is interesting. It started in like the 60s, 70s with women getting, a little bit more freedoms and ability to get a divorce. So it increased in the 70s and 80s. And then it has held steady, and it's actually declining now, which is surprising. It's harder typically on the females than is the males. Both emotionally, she tends to go get more mental health services. She tends to use more alcohol, more medication. But also it lowers her immune system. She gets sick more often, and she tends to lose money. And so there's a money decline. Men, sometimes their income actually increases. I know you're thinking the girls get the child and custody and the guys have to pay child support, but their income actually goes up in general. You're going to have an exception, of course. And they're also more quickly to remarry than the girls are, maybe because she's more likely to have the kids, and that makes things harder, which brings us to our next topic, which is step families. We're just breezing right through this, I know. It's an interesting chapter. I'm sure you're reading it because it's your age. But remarriage, step families. If you think the stats on a first marriage is bad, the stats on a remarriage is worse. Only 1/3 stay married. Whew. It's even a higher divorce rate. Why? Why would that be? We don't know. We make some guesses. You've done it once. It's not so taboo. It doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe it's because of those kids. If you had kids with that first marriage and you bring them into the second, you're bringing in a whole new set of complications. And if you both have kids, woo-wee, it just increases exponentially. You're bringing in kids, and you're bringing in your ex, and you're bringing in your ex's entire family. So now you think you and so got married. Oh, well, now you've got your kids, and now you got a whole additional extended set of family that you have to deal with because everybody's invested in those kids. So tempers are high, emotions are high, investment is high. So it can lead to a lot of problems. Could be one of the reasons. And then, oops, it jumped up. Oops. Did we talk about myths? Okay. Having kids earlier in life versus having kids later in life. Having kids earlier, you can imagine some of the benefits, or you have more energy. You don't have formed ideas about what it's going to be like to parent. So you're not already kind of biased and have high expectations. You tend to have easier pregnancy and delivery. So those some benefits. We're not talking about like 16, you know what I mean, like younger versus older in the 20s and 30s. And then having kids later, the benefits of that is you tend to have more income, more stable life, you have more experiences, so you can draw from them. Bad parts about having them later is you build up expectations about what it's going to be like, and then you are disappointed. You've had all the time to say, my kids won't. When I'm a parent, I won't. Right. Doggone, if your kids don't do the same thing and you ain't saying the same thing yourself. So they can just be unrealistic in their expectations. That's the end of our notes. Man, we got through that in 21 minutes. I guarantee you we did that in class. It would be our whole hour and a half because it's such an interesting topic. And I would love to get your participation. It's really stinky. Okay. But hey, at least the video went so long.